So let's start with some simple review. The pipelines and methods that deliver natural gas are considered one of the safest methods of energy transportation in the United States. However, improper excavation, corrosion, or natural disasters can damage pipelines, and those damages can result in the release of natural gas and the potential for service outages, injury, fire, or even loss of life. Fire departments are typically the first to respond to an emergency, so with the timely recognition and response, as well as a firm understanding of how to manage these hazards and stop the flow of gas, the potential effects of escaping gas can be kept at a minimum. Some of the properties of natural gas are that it is lighter than air, colorless, odorless, and composed primarily of methane. Natural gas has an odorant added to it that has a distinct sulfur-like smell. Natural gas is highly flammable and able to travel great distances underground to reach an ignition source. However, its flammable range is fairly small, ranging from 4 to 14%. Natural gas will usually dissipate rapidly when outdoors, but will tend to pocket in attics and dead air spaces inside structures. It can also be an asphyxiant. Fire department personnel are still expected to isolate, evacuate, and deny entry to any area suspected of containing a hazardous atmosphere. We will always provide for life safety first, including the safety of fire and gas company crews. As firefighters, we do not want to extinguish natural gas-fed fires, but instead remove the fuel by securing the leak. Preferably, we want to stop the flow of natural gas before there is a fire. In this video, we will be covering a few officially accepted methods for securing natural gas leaks. Please keep in mind, we are not taking on the role of securing all natural gas leaks. We will not secure leaks that exist in confined spaces or below grade, and we will only have limited capabilities while securing leaks that are above ground. Remember, even in cases that fire department personnel secure leaks, we will always leave at least one fire department unit on scene until Southwest Gas representatives arrive. We will pass on the information that we have discovered and the interventions we have taken. Please read and follow the guidelines in SNFO SOP number 7 for additional operational guidance and decision making. Remember that firefighter safety and public safety are always our top priority.
Today we're going to talk about meter valves and stopcocks as we know them at Southwest Gas, or the shutoff to a meter set. And what can you do if you encounter one, say that's blowing, or gas is escaping from a meter, or if it's been damaged. One of the things we want to identify first is how to shut it off. We're going to look for the blade that's located on the valve, and if the blade is running parallel with the piping, means that valve is on. To shut that valve off, we simply turn it clockwise, so the blade now is turned crosswise to the piping, and that'll shut the valve off. Almost all of the valves we have at Southwest Gas operate in this manner that are located on a residential meter set. However, we do have a variety of different valves out there, so let's talk a little bit about the different types of valves we have. One of the valves we have is an older style valve. This is identified by a nut that's located on the back side of the valve. This valve also has a blade on it. One of the problems we have with these are very old, and they can also get to be frozen or locked into place, and we may have trouble turning these off. If we do, excessive force can actually break this valve, break the nut on the back side, and now the core of this valve could come out. And now you have an uncontrollable situation. So we're going to be very careful on a valve like this. A newer style valve is this one, where it does not have the nut on the back, but is identified by the 6-sided pattern on the top and bottom of the valve. Again, simply turn this valve so the blade is crosswise to the piping, and it'll turn that valve off. If, for some reason, we cannot get the valve to shut off, or if it's been broken off, we can actually stop the flow of gas one of two different methods. One of the methods to shut down the flow of gas is to use a redwood plug. We insert the redwood plug down through the open stopcock valve or into the piping, and then we're going to drive it in with a non-conductive hammer, something that will not create a spark. Another method is to use what we call a climax plug or an expandable rubber plug. We can insert this down through the stopcock and the piping to shut off the flow of gas. Once this is installed, we expand the rubber plug by turning the wing nut on the shaft, and that'll tighten that up. Once this is tightened up, this will stop the flow of gas. However, for safety reasons, while we are inserting this, don't put your head over the top of this thing because we are building pressure underneath, and if we don't get a good stop off and a good seal, this thing could shoot out. So, like we teach our guys in another class, down and away. Climax plugs come in various sizes, from small up to relatively large in size. One of the things with climax plugs is sometimes we may not be able to get this all the way inserted down into a riser or the piping that comes out of the ground, is because there's a transition inside what we call the riser. This transition is located right here by this neck on the riser. If we try to insert this below this point, we're not going to be able to get a stock or a climax plug to go down inside there. So if it's sheared off here, we're not going to have any luck with a climax plug or even a redwood plug because it's physically just not going to be able to get it in there. Something else to watch out for too while you're out there is we can look at the meter and we can identify usage, whether a meter is operating correctly or possibly if there's a problem inside the residence. What we're going to do is look at a dial on here. It'll say 1/2 foot or 1 foot or 2 foot dial. That's the lowest registering dial on the meter. And watch for operation. In normal operation, this thing should just barely be turning or turning slowly. But if there's a problem with the house line, someone damaged it or it came apart, this dial will just be spinning extremely quickly like it's shown here. Now we have an issue inside the residence, and this would be a good time to go ahead and turn off that meter valve.
If you have a rapidly spinning meter dial or a gas odor in the structure, extreme caution is warranted due to a heightened risk that the structure has an explosive environment.
Once that valve is shut off, then we've isolated gas from the residence and put it into a safe condition. However, please remember, let Southwest Gas arrive, be there to contact them, discuss with them what actions you've taken and what's done so they know how to proceed from there. All right, now in a controlled environment for training purposes only, we're going to show how to install a climax plug with a pipeline or a riser under pressure. So first we're going to get some pressure going here, and we're only using air, so there's no hazard with gas. Okay. Now as he inserts the plug, notice his head is down and away. He's keeping one hand on top to hold pressure on it. As you tighten that rubber expansion plug on the end of that, you're going to start to create a piston action inside that pipeline, which is going to try to force that back out. While he's tightening it, he has to hold that solid until he gets that flow off. Then a few extra turns to make sure it's solid. Again, heads away, not over the top of it, in case that thing were to become dislodged. It becomes an arrow now, or a missile. Once the flow's off, we can go ahead and secure this now with some type of a tape. We're using electrical tape right here. We're going to bring it up over the handle and then just make several loops. Duct tape, electrical tape, doesn't matter. Some type of tape. It's going to add a little insurance as to keeping that from coming loose. Okay. And then again, with any situation, if we can't get the flow under control, if we have issues getting it stopped off, secure the area and wait for Southwest Gas.
We need to identify the problem first. Our Emergency Response Guidebook, or ERG, recommends an initial isolation distance of 330 feet. We want to make our approach upwind of the reported leak and gather any information away from the source of the leak. Once we have as much information as possible, we can make a plan to mitigate the emergency. Once we have that plan, we can identify and deploy into the hot zone with full PPE and breathing air. Our standard is that we deploy a charged hose line to wet down the area in order to limit static electricity buildup. It will remain in place as a protection from a change in conditions such as leak finding and ignition source. At any point and as soon as possible, we want to evacuate civilians from the identified areas of danger. Additionally, we want to identify and isolate any ignition sources. Always leave any machinery that is running continuing to run. Make certain that machinery is securely parked and not in danger of movement that could endanger citizens or responders. Here, after identifying the problem, the crew comes forward into position and institutes our best practices. They deploy a charged hose line, wet down the area, and approach the area of the suspected leak. They quickly recognize the leak above the meter valve and close the valve on the riser. They utilize the valve to secure the leak. They do this by moving the valve from an inline or parallel position to an opposing or perpendicular position. They then monitor the surrounding area with the 4-gas monitor to ensure the flow of gas has been stopped. Above-ground damage can, on occasion, cause below-ground leakage as well as above-ground leakage, so be alert to signs of underground leakage, like bubbles in standing water or gas odor within the building. At least one fire department crew will meet with Southwest Gas personnel to relay what interventions have taken place and provide a status update. Once the area is lightly wet down, crews can make their way to closely identify and isolate the leak in the best of a number of ways. Here, the crew will utilize a Climax plug into a severed riser. We can also use tape to back up our securing of the leak with the Climax plug as an extra measure of safety. In this scenario, a civilian has hit a gas meter with a vehicle. The crew quickly determines the problem, removes the person involved, and applies one of our standard interventions, a redwood plug.
Alright. Sorry, man. I don't know what happened.
Again, personnel deploy a charged hose line, wet down the area, and insert a redwood plug to the riser with a non-conductive hammer. The firefighter also utilizes a roll of duct tape to back up the security of the redwood plug. Afterward, the air is monitored for any residual natural gas in the area. The captain meets with Southwest Gas personnel on their arrival to share information about the scene. In this scenario, the crew has discovered a plastic gas line that has been severed from some minor digging. The crew identifies the line as above ground and recognizes the ability to intervene. The crew evacuates occupants of the residence, monitors the air in and around the affected area, and seeks to eliminate ignition sources throughout the emergency. The crew quickly deploys a hand line, lightly wets down the ground, and proceeds with securing the leak. They utilize a Climax plug in this case and back up the plug using a roll of trauma tape. The crew again stays on scene to relay their findings and interventions to Southwest Gas personnel.
Hi, my name is Dave Beatty with Southwest Gas here in the Southern Nevada Division. When it comes to safety, the gas company regularly and thoroughly spreads the word about the signs of a natural gas leak to the general public, excavators, and to those involved with land use jurisdiction. For odorized natural gas, these signs include smelling the distinct sulfur-like odor similar to rotten eggs, hearing a hissing or roaring from a pipeline, or seeing dirt or water blowing into the air surrounding a pipeline. If these signs are reported to your agency, or if you become aware that the line has been damaged, evacuate the immediate area and ensure that smoking, lighting matches, and operating electrical equipment are prohibited. Secure the area, and if possible, the flow of gas as demonstrated today. Working together, we can quickly and significantly reduce the risks associated with natural gas emergencies and continue to protect the people and property in the communities we mutually serve.